Hi, everybody. Adam Benini of WGRZ TV, and there is Sal Majorana, perched in the field house, working the beat for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. The snow is falling here in Amherst,
It's snowing
outside my
here
home
too.
office window.
Yep.
So, but here we are. It's December, and it's the Bills and New England Patriots Sunday after just a mammoth win over the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. We were both there Sunday afternoon and evening to witness that. So before we begin and start looking ahead to this matchup with the Patriots, two with them over the final three games of the regular season, any news? I know they had a walkthrough there today on this Wednesday, right? What, if anything, from an information standpoint, is coming out of Orchard Park?
Yeah, really nothing. When they do walkthroughs, Adam, first of all, the media doesn't have access to watch it, so we can't even see what they're walking through. And then he didn't have any injury updates. To me, it's always been a little silly to do injury updates when you're walking through because nobody's actually practicing. So nothing new today, but he did say whatever this everybody participated at some level. So that could literally mean one of the injured guys was walking laps around the field for all we know. So nothing to take from the injuries. It's going to be the same guys we have to look at this week: Rasul Douglas, Taylor Rapp, and DeMar Hamlin, the three defensive backs who missed the game. Those are the ones you want to watch for because they survived. Somehow they survived last week against that offense with those three guys out. It should not be as challenging this week if those guys can't play. But really, I can't think of who else is there that we're even thinking about. I don't think there is anybody that we have to worry about, right? They got the offensive guys back. Spencer Brown said he was okay after the game with the neck injury, and Allen looked fine talking to him today. So, yeah, it's just I think the three Matt Milano.
No, I was going to say, did you mention Milano in there? Right, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see what his situation is. But and that could be, it's a groin. They may choose to be careful with that and sit him out. So we'll see. We'll see later in the week.
Well, and you know what? A groin injury too. That's kind of indicative of I'm just referring to a broader context here. That's indicative, and it gets to a point we've made about him, of a guy who's coming back from the length of the layoff that he's been on, rehabbing those two injuries, right? That's the type of injury that you typically see in these situations.
It's a soft tissue injury, and that's what you would worry about since he hadn't played football 13 months until he played against the 49ers. So that was the kind of thing that you would worry about, and sure enough, it happened. So, Milano, it's getting tough with him because he is the guy that has really battled injuries throughout a good chunk of his career, and now it's really become prominent. This week that because he hasn't really played that well either. I mean, I understand because he hadn't played football for so long, but he really has not been the Matt Milano we knew, before that Jacksonville game last year. Dorian Williams is probably the better player or has been the better player this year than Milano. I think the plan with Milano was, look, we've clinched our division. Let's get him up to speed. And, they want to win all these games, but let's get him up to speed so maybe he's full go for the playoffs. And now this is a setback. I mean, this could be another potential troublesome setback for him. So Williams had the injury last week too, the elbow. Hopefully he's okay because they can't be relying on Balen Spector. Adam Spector is just not a good player. I mean, it's 4 years now. He's had opportunities to play on the defense, and he's nothing more than a special teamer. So they need Williams back for sure, and hopefully Milano.
That was painfully obvious in terms of Balen Spector when he was in there the other night. So
yeah, I mean, he's just not the answer. Joe Andreessen's not the answer. He played one snap, I think, in the game. They need to get either or Dorian Williams, Matt Milano back healthy for the stretch run and into the playoffs. They got to have at least one of those guys.
I just, and I guess this is nitpicking in hindsight before we move on here, but, when he came back in the San Francisco game, right, and played all those snaps, right? What was it? That was the game, right? 70-something% of the snaps he played. I mean, did they bring him back? Was it too much too soon for him, I guess is the question I would ask.
I think we were both surprised, right? I mean, I thought the plan was going to be Dorian Williams would start, play the bulk of the snaps. Milano would come in on, passing situations. He's technically a better coverage linebacker than Williams, although I'm not so sure based on what we've seen so far. That really hasn't been the case. I thought that was the plan. And then they would get him up to 100%, in these weeks to come and then ready to go for the playoffs. They plunged him right into it.
Yeah,
and it seems like last week he would have played every snap if he hadn't gotten hurt. Dorian Williams was on special teams. So, that changed the plan last week. And now we all have to see if he can come back from this latest injury.
All right. We will watch that situation. Relatively speaking, the Bills, compared to other NFL teams at this stage of the season, fairly healthy. So, as we've said before, the glass way more than half full on that front. Quick word from the sponsor. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Head to the website. Get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. Speaking of the game starting, this was flexed from a 1 o'clock kickoff to a 4:25 p.m., much to Sal's chagrin, I think. Didn't you take to Twitter and
I did.
Strenuously object to that move? But
I hate
but
this shit, Adam.
I think we all understand the big reason why. I mean, this is the Josh Allen show. He has become must-see TV, and I think the selection of games for the network wasn't all that desirable anyway. But, I mean, Josh Allen is desirable. They want him in the most viewed time slot, and that's 4:25 Eastern on Sunday. It certainly isn't the matchup with the Patriots that's really of intrigue.
No. Well, what happened here, Adam, the schedule comes out in May. And in May, week 16, 49ers at Dolphins looked like a pretty juicy game. 49ers, defending NFC champ, probably going to win the division again. And the Dolphins, if you remember back then, Adam, they were the sexy pick to dethrone the Bills as the AFC East champion. It's kind of hard to believe, right, as we sit here right now, but that was what was going on in May. So that game looked pretty good. And the other game was Jaguars and Raiders, which was going to be a turd bowl regardless, probably. But obviously what happened with the 49ers and Dolphins made that game relatively unattractive for the main window at 4:25. Now, the funny thing is, they moved the Bills game because it's Josh Allen. That's the only reason this game was picked to go there, is because Josh Allen's the MVP front runner. The Bills have been an amazingly fun team to watch, so I get that. But what was strange to me is that even though the 49ers and Dolphins have both been disappointing teams, they are technically still alive, both of them. I mean, slim, but they're still alive for a playoff berth. So it's, for those two teams, for sure, it's a big game. Those are pretty big markets. So I was still surprised that the Bills got picked for a game at 4:25 that they're probably going to blow out, as opposed to that game, which is probably going to be a closer game, and it still is somewhat meaningful in a small way to both teams. So I'll tell you what, if it really is all about Josh Allen, that just shows you the power of Josh Allen, that they moved this game to 4:25.
Yeah, and really what the Bills have become and what he has become in terms of being an A-list celebrity in the National Football League. Because years ago, when you didn't have a player of his caliber, I don't know, the Buffalo market, they would consider that. The networks have always respected it, right? But when you have Miami and San Francisco, those markets as options, I mean, Boston is an attractive market for them despite the struggles of this New England team at this point. It illustrates how widespread the interest is in Josh Allen and what he's evolved into and what his game has really become, breaking records, dynamic through the air and with his feet, playing like one of the all-time greats, as we have talked about. And I know you talked a little bit with him today during his news conference, and I was intrigued to hear him. You get a lot of the platitudes from Josh, which you would expect, right? But he referred to the fact how he's doing some of this stuff. He's always had the talent, but he's become so refined and so honed, and his football instincts have even reached a higher level, and that's the word he used in describing it, instinctual.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him a question. I said, you're 7 years in the league now, so we would expect you to be mentally in tune. You know what's going on all these years with the same head coach. Even though it's a different coordinator, there's still a lot of principles that go back to even the Dable days in this offense. Some of these teammates that he's been with a few years now. So we expect all of that to be on point. And I asked him, does he think he's actually playing the best physical football of his career, athletically and all that? And he kind of roundabouted it, but he did basically say, yeah, he probably is. This is the best football that he's played, from the standpoint of knowing where to go to the ball, throwing it, his footwork is great. Everything is just so on point with him. And that was the point I was trying to get with him is, do you think, I understand the offense as well as you're going to know it, but are you playing the best football? There have been a couple seasons, right? 2022, I think, for a chunk of that, where he wasn't playing his best football. They were winning games, but they were also losing some games. He wasn't nearly as good as he's been this year. I mean, we talk about 2020. I think he was great that year, but there's been points from then till now that he hasn't been the way he's been this season. And he sort of did give me the answer I was looking for, that, yeah, he is playing the best football of his entire career.
Within the framework of an offense that is just now, I mean, you talk about explosiveness. There were some issues with that early in the season, a lack thereof. They trade for Amari Cooper. But then you see when they get healthy, and what we've seen over the last couple of games, especially Sunday in Detroit, where you get Coleman, Kincaid, that sort of a thing, the options that he has. So you have Allen playing at his absolute best. Now the array he has around him is sort of complete. I mean, I go back to Dan Campbell opting for that onside kick, with plenty of time left in the game, down 10 points. That's like almost a surrender flag in terms of his opinion of his defense. And acknowledgement that this offense can't be stopped. I mean, so it's Josh, but then what's around him is now really kind of hitting its stride and then some, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You look back to the start of the season, the first 3 games, they win them all. They had 47 against the Jaguars, who are terrible. But then those next 3 games, Adam, the loss to Baltimore, the loss to Houston, the narrow win over the Jets, they scored 43 points combined in those 3 games. No, 53, I'm sorry. It was 10, 20, that's 30, 53 points in the 3 games. Dude, they're averaging like 40 points a game over the last 8 or whatever it is, right? That just shows you how much of a huge quantum leap they've made. And it's because he's played so much better in these last 8 games or whatever it is, whatever it's been. And the guys around him, we've said this. They moved on from Stephon Diggs. There's no longer that need to feed the ball to him. And I think this entire unit has kind of come together as one. Everyone knows their role, and everyone also knows that it might not be their day, and it might be somebody else's day. Perfect example was Amari Cooper last week. 2 weeks ago, he got targeted 14 times in L.A. Last week, it was 0. They had other guys that stepped up, though. Kincaid was back, right? Ty Johnson steps into a huge role because they could clearly see matchup advantages against their linebackers, so they went to Ty Johnson in the passing game. They can do this. The Bills can flip their script almost every game. There's a different way they can attack you because their personnel is so diverse and they've got so many guys they can go to now that they're all back and healthy. That's been also a huge key to why Allen has played so well. Speaking of Stephon Diggs, did you happen to catch him on Good Morning Football? I think it was. I didn't see it. I saw the tweets. Somebody put a video out, a tweet about it. And he gave him his flowers. He admitted that Josh is the MVP, which, good. He is. It would be pretty stupid if Diggs said, "Oh, no, I think Lamar's a better player." That would be pretty dumb, but it wouldn't be too far off, actually. Lamar is having a great year. I was looking at it, Adam. Everyone thinks it's going to be Josh's MVP. Technically, Lamar actually has better statistics than Josh. It's crazy to believe, but he does. In a number of key categories, Lamar's actually got better numbers. So it's not a lock. The voters love Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, they do.
They do. They just love Lamar Jackson. It would not shock me if the next 3 weeks these guys kind of play equal. It wouldn't surprise me if Lamar gets his third and Allen gets shut out. But I think ultimately Allen's done enough on the bigger stages that I think he might get the vote. But don't be surprised, folks, and don't be pissing and moaning if Lamar gets it, because he could.
Well,
last week he threw 5 touchdown passes and had 4 incomplete passes. So pretty well.
Yeah, but I don't know that Allen could do any more.
No,
I guess we'll find out. That's the point. And there seems to be this national narrative, and interest and focus and admiration for what that guy's done and the level of play that he's now reached, that suggests to me that the tide is clearly swung in his favor. I would be surprised if he didn't win the MVP, albeit, you've got 3 games left now. And so, well, let's turn our attention to the defense in that regard, right? Because obviously, 42 points in the win over the Rams, and we've talked about that, and I think we agree there was a silver lining in that, the way they stopped the run early and really held them to 14 points through, until like about a minute and a half left in the third quarter, and then things got crazy, and you even referred to that had a lot to do with the way that game was going in game script. But they have serious corrections and things to clean up. If they're going to make a run at a Super Bowl, acknowledging fully how productive this offense is right now, they're going to need to do some shoring up on the defensive side. And I guess my question to you is, to what extent do these 3 games, 2 against the Patriots and the Jets sandwiched in between, present the opportunity to sort of get that done and be like get-right games before they hit the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're playing 2 teams, the Patriots twice, the Jets in the middle there, that obviously are having terrible seasons. Now, I think the Patriots have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. So, I mean, I don't know if you're going to learn a whole lot by, I think, beating them up twice. The Jets, as bad as their season has gone, they still have some good people on that team. Their offense, if Aaron Rodgers is playing well, yeah, that's pretty good. Garrett Wilson's one of the best receivers in the league. Breece Hall's one of the better running backs. They've got some people that can cause the Bills defense some trouble. So I think that game will be one that we might be able to learn a little bit more about what the Bills are trying to do to shore things up. I think they'll give the Bills a tougher game than maybe most people are expecting. I'm not expecting that from the Patriots. Drake May has been pretty good for a rookie quarterback. He's made strides. He's got almost no help around him. The Bills defense should be able to lock this team up. I think I picked 33-10 as my score for my game preview. I'm not even sure they'll get 10. We'll see. Maybe turnovers have something to do with it. But I think the Bills defense can definitely get right this week. Hopefully they can build on that in the Jets game. And then if the Patriots game is something that they have to play for, if they're trying to lock up a seed, then the starters are going to play and you keep continuing to build for the postseason. That could be a week, Adam, where they end up resting guys, though, because they may be locked into a certain spot and can't do anything about it. But this defense does need to make some improvements. I mean, we'll give them a pass for last week. 3 defensive starters in the backfield out of the game. You lose Milano. You lost Williams for a while. There were extenuating circumstances, but I would say the defensive line has to play much better. It was a big step up last week. They've got to continue to get better because they've been disappointing all year. And as you and I both know, it's been the defensive line's complete no-shows in the last 3 playoff games, the losses, the last 3 games they lost in the playoffs. It's been on the defensive line. So there's going to be an area they have got to be better. And it was a good step in the right direction last week against a great offensive line, right? Probably the best offensive line in football. No question. And they did a great job. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, hopefully some reason for optimism. Just a quick thought, because we're going to get into our Patriots preview coming up on Friday, and so we don't have to go too far there. But, Drake May, I think back to when the Bills drafted Allen in 2018 and kind of how they brought him along for him to get to this point. Yep. And I do think the lion's share of the credit has to do with Josh, but he had some consistency with a coordinator, early in his career. I think he benefited from that. And it was part of the McDermott Bean put the right players in the right roles and get the culture right and everything. And Josh Allen has been at the center of that. But there's been cohesion and consistency sort of around him. And as you look at May and you think about the future and what he might develop into, I guess it accents the point of how well the Bills have done that. And given the state of the roster over there in Foxborough, it makes me question kind of what's going on in a place that not too long ago was like the model for that type of thing around Tom Brady.
Absolutely. Look, with Drake May, Unfortunately for Bills fans, I think they may have found their guy, right? It was nice that they wasted a first round pick on Mac Jones and pissed away 3 years trying to develop him, who's a lost cause. That was great for Bills fans. Patriots remained, an afterthought. And now I think Drake May, they're having a terrible season, but if they can get this roster upgraded, and like I told you earlier, this is one of the worst rosters top to bottom in the league. Their record proves it, and if you watch them, you see it. They're just not very good at anything. But the quarterback has been pretty good. Despite those, the difficulties, the lack of talent around him, he's got a little bit of Josh Allen in him when you watch him play. He's got escapability. He's a big kid. He can move. He can run. He can gain yards as a runner, and he's got the arm. So I hate to say it, but they probably, it's very early. I know things can change, but it looks like they've got their guy, their potential franchise quarterback. Not great if you're a Bills fan, if the Patriots can build around him. Right now, they just have nothing around him. So I don't think the Bills are going to have too much trouble at all containing Drake May and this Patriots offense. But it is something to watch. It'll be, and I think, everyone's talking about they're going to shit can Mayo after 1 year. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's pretty tough to do that in 1 year, give him only 1 year. And move on when it was very clear he was going in with a substandard roster. I think he'll get a second season, and then we'll see what kind of coach he is. I know there's been talk about Alex Van Pelt, our old buddy. He's their offensive coordinator. It hasn't been great for him. He got a lot of criticism last week for the way he called the game against the Cardinals, to the point where Mayo even took a veiled shot at him in the post-game presser. He walked it back the next day. But things are not great on that side. So if they start surrounding Drake May with good coaching and good players, that'll be something to watch down the road.
Yeah, it is. Because, so much of it has to do with actually acquiring the guy who qualifies as a franchise quarterback. Buffalo Bills fans know all too well that is about as far from an exact science as you can get when it comes to the NFL draft and that sort of thing. There's 17 years to prove it. They certainly have it now with the number 17, and it remains to be seen what's going to happen in New England. But May, I agree with you, showing a lot of positive signs in the midst of a team right now that is, 3-11, and they've dropped 4 of their last 5 games. So that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of Bleav in Bills. Sal Majorana is in Orchard Park at the Field House. I am Adam Bonini, WGRZ TV. 425. Remember, this thing has been flexed from 1 to 425 Sunday at Highmark Stadium. Buffalo as much as a 14-point favorite in this game over the Patriots. So for Sal, I'm Adam. Thanks so much for being with us here in Bleav in Bills.